the nature of deception is increasing daily. And Doug, did you see the article about Google going to use, in essence, a bunch of people that already have a bias against God to determine what they will allow even on their search engines, et cetera? And once you're on the list, you know, you get, 3 strikes and you're out. Are you aware of that story? Well, again, I think it is becoming more and more obvious that when God sets the sheep and the goats, he's the one that determines, but the policies that are being put into place, if you're seeing already the hatred, especially in Canada now and its prime minister are incredibly becoming more, and by the way, I'm not bashing Canadians because I have tons of listeners, there's no bashing in the statement, but the problem, you know, people say they don't care what he is as long as he's cute. Well, I mean, man, Doug, that makes my head feel like a pumpkin, you know, under a D10 cat. I go, you don't care what he says unless he's cute? What, if the Antichrist shows up at Knickers and pulls the chain on the guillotine blade, it's good because he was cute in those knickers? We have the most devoid of reality population base ever. People won't even do the basic homework to look at MK Ultra and some of the mind control experiments. And yet now we've got neural implants, we've got John McInsane coming out of his brain issue and voting against Trump. We've got all the fake Republicans that basically, you know, I can't even, I don't have a word yet for the contempt I have for those guys. How do you even begin, okay, boat and you're the captain and you think everybody's rowing with you, but they're down in the hull of the ship drilling holes in the hull of the keel. You're going to sink. You can give the best orders. You can even point your sails in the wind, but they're trying to sink him. So we must pray as Christians. Let me say this. You know, I'm sorry, but the people that are out, and look, does that mean we morally give Trump a pass? Absolutely not. But I believe in something. I believe the simple statement that Jesus catches his fish before he cleans them. God doesn't gut sinners. He basically brings them to the conviction where they want to change, and then the Spirit of the living God is free to move in their lives to bring about the necessary change. And you know, the thing is I'll tell you this. You know who's going to be, and you, LA, you know this too. Please, we've talked about this. The people who are going to fight the truth the hardest are the ones who are going to praise the falsehood the fastest. And I'm talking about claimants to Christianity. Go ahead, LA.
Well, you know, again, Steve and Doug and Joe, it's just we talk about this stuff, and I know a lot of people will, they'll call it fear mongering. They'll say you guys are always so negative, but it's like it's all reality. And if we were going to this one particular fellowship locally, and I won't mention any names. I really like the pastor; he's a great guy. Never a word about anything political. Never a word about anything prophetic. Never a word about anything about Israel. Nothing. We were there for a year. And I turned to my wife and I said, I can't sit here anymore. I mean, I like the pastor. He's a really nice guy. But it's completely irrelevant. It's completely irrelevant. And the problem is there's so many of the churches that literally have this lukewarm idea of Christianity. They want to play everything safe. Everything has to be safe. We want a soft landing place for our people. We don't want to scare the sheep. Nonsense. You want to warn the sheep. And hats off to you, Doug and Joe, for your show, because you're warning the sheep constantly. And the people, like I know, Steve, we both get lots and lots and lots of emails. I get emails every single day, all week long, from people who have either come across the line for the first time and given their lives to Jesus because they realize he's the truth, the way, and the life, or they've come back to him because they left the church because they were, and this is true, they were watching Ancient Aliens and they became an Ancient Alien devotee. They took on that paradigm, that worldview, they embraced that, and they walked with it. And then they got a hold of my stuff, or your stuff, Steve, and other people, Tom Horn stuff, and it changed them. And by the way, those three names are used over and over and over again. Dear LA, I watch your stuff, Tom Horn, Steve Quayle. We hear that over and over again. And what it does is it brings people back to not this lukewarm deal with Jesus, but they're on fire. And they look around and they realize, oh my gosh, prophecy's happening right under our noses. Why aren't more churches talking about it? And some churches are waking up, and that's fantastic. But it's just like the reason why Branson is sold out and there's 3,000 people there, and live streaming is probably going to go through the roof, let's hope so, is because people are hungry. They're not hearing about it at their church. So when you assemble the kind of folks that Steve's got on the roster, people are going to walk away from that conference armed to the teeth, and they're going to know the truth, and the truth will make them free.
Amen. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, too, the anti-pope, let's call him that, calls Jesus in the Bible a lie. You know, Pope called him Jesus a sinner. You know, and what's incredible is that Jesus said, the thief comes and has nothing in me. If Jesus wasn't sinless, he wouldn't have been God's ideal sacrifice. So the point is that he took upon himself the sin of the world, but he had no internal sin. So, you know, after doing this, and when I say writing, talking, 25 years, you know, and thank you all who have sent me birthday greetings. Thank you so much, and you know, belated birthday greetings and stuff. The point is that I'm on one crusade. You know, let's call it this, the last crusade. I don't believe it's my time to go, so I want to make that clear. But what I do believe is this. At this point in my life, you know, I'm saying, Lord, bring people to my path, and this is the same thing, L.A., I know you're claiming, and we're all claiming this, that have ears to hear. We're not telling you to take anything we say because we say it. Look, we are telling you to look at everything in the light of Scripture. And if some guy wants to come on, by the way, I challenge that person to an on-air debate. I know that debating is foolish, but I want to hear what he says about 1594, 1574 manuscripts from the chroniclers of the conquistadors. I want to know what he says about Og, king of Bashan. He said, well, the guy was a small guy who lived in a big bed. Yet Eusebius, the church father, the one that, you know, some of these guys sealed their faith with their martyrdom, said that, you know, he made King Og basically this thing, the identical person that the Romans worshipped as Saturn, and says that he's in stasis in the British Isles. And you can't understand the whole history of giants unless you go to the British Isles. L.A. was talking about the the geospatial coordinates and the archaeoastronomical coordinates of how all this stuff lines up. I want to make it really clear to everybody, prior to the flood of Noah, there was a massive pyramid culture throughout the world. It was in the days of Peleg that God divided the continents. So there was a supercontinent. Some people call it Gondwanaland. That's a hard one to try and spell. The others call it Pangea. That's easier. But the point is God does something. He separates, even at that time, before, and I don't know why God chose to separate the continents at that time, but I will tell you this, if at the end of God's patience, before he judged it, the fallen angels knew it was coming, by the way. You can't read the book of Enoch or the book of Giants not to know that. And for a free version, go on my website, Genesis6Giants.com, and click on the nav bar where it says ancient text. It's there free to look at. So the point is that they knew. You know, multitudes in the valley of decision, for the day of the Lord is at hand. Let me make something clear. The day of the Lord comes at the end of the tribulation. We're going to go through, and I'm saying this, I speak for myself, but we're going to go through plenty of hell. And it's amazing. Do you think those guys that were beheaded for the testimony of Jesus, or all the Syrian Christians who died, were slaughtered, bombed, blown up, disemboweled? You know, and people say, I don't want to listen to your show. You just talk about gory stuff. Well, I got news for you. It obviously isn't registering because you still live in the world of Pollyanna on, there we go. I got a new one for everybody. Pollyannas on Prozac. They can't deal with reality, but they sure want their bloody Prozac to take those, incremental bits of reality. Oh no, reality is setting in. Give me another Prozac dipped binky, okay? So, you know, I can't sell them, but I'm sure somebody could start selling Prozac dipped binkies. They'd come into breaking the law, but hey, You know, it seems like that's where we're at. So I'm sorry, I don't mean to be cynical, and I am. But here's the thing. It seems like no matter what LA does, no matter what Timothy Alberino does, and by the way, he's got real enemies that really don't like him. You don't go where he's gone in Rome and think you just, get away free. God has intervened. 2 days before they attempted to kill him and his family, his wife was awakened in the middle of the night, and the Lord said, Jasmine, get down and pray. And the point is that I can tell you this, that God warns his people before it comes. But I've asked the Lord, I don't know if you have, L.A., I said, Lord, what comes next? What revelations do you want? And I guarantee you that we as Christians have surrendered the narrative that there is one way to heaven, that's through Jesus Christ. Well, that's divisive. Absolutely. Solomon was ready to obviously use the child sacrifice to test the true love of the real mother. The real mother was willing to give up the baby rather than see it slaughtered. The non-real mother would rather see the baby slaughtered. Half of a live child in her mind was to make her point right. Solomon was wise enough to see through it. I ask myself this, Doug, and seriously, I'm asking everyone to think about this. If you look at the days of Babylon before they were conquered, the literal finger of God wrote on the wall when the king was having a great feast and all of his debauched madness, your kingdom is divided, and it's going to be taken from you this very night. And so I think what's critical is this. What I believe, I say this to the Lord, okay? I say, Lord, will you please write it out, spell it out, and make it so clear? And you know what? After I pray that, I say, what else could he do? What else could he do? Voices from heaven, the people of God, the ones that saw his mighty works, they said, Moses, go talk to God. We don't want to hear from him directly. Henry Gruber tells a story of people praying send down the glory, Lord, send down the glory, religious sounding. And God said, tell them to stop singing that. If I send down my glory now, half of them will die. Think that maybe put the fear of the Lord in a few people that sing songs, not even thinking what they sing? So here's the thing. We are on a quest to make known the hidden mysteries of history, the manifold cover-up, and in the mouth of 10,000 witnesses. If you want to deny it, if you want to think that, gee, the tallest guy in the world was something, an ALA, wait until they find out about the little people that people are seeing all over the world, from the islands of Hawaii, the Menehune, to all over the Naripan in Thailand, and all of every single, the British we people, Iceland we people, Russian folklore we people, New Zealand, Australian we people. They're not all called we people. They got names I can't pronounce because they're in, Maori language or Maori language. But the point being, you cannot get away from it. The supernatural now is being thrust into, quote, the world of the denialists, and the denialists will either come to grips with it, come to Jesus, overcome it by the blood of the Lamb, the word of their testimony, loving not their life unto death, or they're going to succumb to it. And my concern is this. Jesus himself said, if he's told us earthly things and we believe him not, how can he tell us heavenly things? And my answer, Lord, is, Lord, it seems like nobody believes you on anything you say. Now, there are people that do, and a lot of them listen, but I would say the majority of Christendom, and based on, you saw that, Joe and Doug, the Gallup poll, or it was one of the polls, maybe George Barna poll, but, 50, 60% of the Christians don't even believe there's a literal devil. That's just a metaphor for evil. Well, then how did evil originate? One paramecium got a bad attitude towards an amoeba and decided to maybe zap him with some more primordial goo? I mean, come on, it's ridiculous.